So students, we were discussing chapter Federalism, grade 10th political science second chapter. So till now we have defined federalism, then we have seen difference between unitary and the federal government, and then we have seen the features of the federalism. Now the exact balance between the central government, the powers of the central government and the state government, it varies from federation to federation. And there are the two routes through which the federations are formed. One is coming together federation and the second is holding together federation. Now in coming together federation, the states in the coming together federation, let's discuss the coming together federation. The states they come together on their own to form a bigger unit. So states they come together, coming together of states is there in the this type of federation. They come together to form the bigger unit. So they come together to form the bigger unit. So by pooling their sovereignty here, by pooling their sovereignty, what is the meaning of sovereignty? The decision making. That is the authority on the internal and external decision of the country. So that by pooling their sovereignty, by merging their sovereignty and by retaining their identity, they can increase their security within a federation. So when the states they merge themselves into the federation, they become a bigger unit and they become a more powerful. So they retain their identity and they merge their sovereignty within that federation. It increases their security within the federation. They become more powerful. Now in this case of coming together federation, all the constituent states they have equal power. So in this case all the states they have equal power, and states are more strong in the federation than the federal government in the case of coming together federation. So the example is USA, Switzerland and Australia. The another one is holding together federation. So this was the one route through which the federations were formed, that is the coming together federation, and the second one is your holding together federation. In holding together federation, the large country decides to divide its power between the constituent units and the national government. Like in our case, so the large country decides to divide its power between the constituent units, that is the states, and the national government. But here the center will be more strong. The center will dilute their power downward to the state government and the local government. And in case of holding together federation, the central government, in this case the central government and the state government, the central government will dilute power to the state government. And here in the case of holding together federation, many states they have unequal powers and many states they have a special powers also. Like in case of the article 371, earlier article 370 was there, it was abolished. According to article 370, Jammu and Kashmir was given the special status, that they will have their own constitution and they will have their own flag, and then after that no one from outside the state can purchase property there. So this was according to the article 370, the special provision was given to the Jammu and Kashmir. And now according to article 371, in our case the special provision is given to the some northeastern states like Nagaland, in Mizoram. These states are there which are having now the special status because of their geographical location, because of their culture, the tribal area that is. So they are provided with the special status. So in the case of holding together federation, some states they have unequal power, like in the case of union territories in our country. Some states, some areas are too small that they cannot be merged into a state. So it is better to make them union territories. But here the union territories are controlled by the union government. So in the holding together federation, some states they have unequal powers and some states have a special powers. So in holding together federation, the large country that divides its power between the constituent units and the national government, and here the union government is more powerful. They will dilute their power downward to the state government and the local government. And in the case of holding together federation, wherever holding together federation will be formed, there the states, some states have unequal power and some states have special power. An example of holding together federation, India. Okay, India is the example of holding together federation. So we discussed in this the types of federalism, that is coming together federation and holding together federation. So after discussing the types of federalism, that is coming together federation and holding together federation, now we have to discuss the topic what makes India a federal country. Now we have seen in the case of Belgium and Sri Lanka that these were very small countries. These were very small countries in relation to India if we see the population and if we see the area also. But still, they face difficulties in managing their diversity. So, what about our country, the vast country with a diverse population? How we will manage our diversity? So, we have to be very careful in our approach while managing the diversity, and we have to be very careful while doing our power sharing. So we have to focus on our power sharing arrangement, that is a federal approach which we have adopted in the form of power sharing. So we started with enacting after independence. Our first priority, we started with drafting of our constitution. India emerged as an independent nation after the painful and bloody partition we have seen. Then after that, after independence, many of the princely states, they joined our country. 565 princely states were there, and out of that 552 easily signed the instrument of cession with India, and very few, that is 13, they merged with Pakistan. Now, after this, we have to see that how the provision, whatever features we have seen of the federalism, the 5 6 features we have seen, how they are applied, how the provisions are applied in the Indian Constitution. So, after the princely states, they became the part of India. So, the Constitution described us as Indian Union. So, we are Indian Union of States, and nowhere in the Constitution word federation is mentioned. So now in this topic we have to see that the provisions of the constitution, and we have seen the features of the federalism. Though those features, they match with the provisions of the constitution. So this we have to see that what makes India a federal country. So the repetition of the same points which we have done in the features of federalism. So first of all, what makes a country a federal country? So when the two or more level of government is there. So obviously we have two or more levels of government. The three levels of government we have, that is the union government, state government, and the local self government. So three levels of government we have, it clearly demarcates. So we are a federal country. Then the division of power is there. The constitution demarcates the power of central government and state government into different lists. Who will make law in which area? The central government will make the law where, and then the state government, and then where the both governments can make a law. So everything is specified in the constitution. Their legislative powers are completely demarcated and divided according to these lists. So under union list, the government, the union government, the central government, they will make the laws. And here the very important subjects are included like communication, banking, defense. So these important areas, external affair, foreign affair. So here the important areas are included where only the central government will make the law. Why? Because uniform policy is required in these areas. So that's why these areas are included in the union list. Then comes your state list. In the state list, we have the areas where the state government will only make the law, like in the case of irrigation is there, agriculture is there. So these areas, police is there, health is there, law and order. So these areas come under the purview of state government, and they will only make the law. Then in the case of your concurrent list, both the state government and the central government, they can make the law. Like in the case of education is there, marriage is there, adoption is there. So in these areas, both can make the law, central government and the state government. But in case of conflict, the law of central government will prevail in the case of concurrent list. Then whichever subjects are left, and after our constitution was enacted, so many subjects were added on like computer softwares, IT. So all these areas come under the residuary list, and under residuary list the center will legislate, that is the center have the power to make the law. So the complete division is there, everything is properly specified in the constitution. So the legislation is completely demarcated in the form of list, union list, state list, concurrent list, and then the residuary list. Then after that, the next feature not equal powers to all the administrative units. So we have seen in the holding together federation, like in our case, some states have unequal power, some states have special power. Like I told you earlier also through Article 370, earlier the Jammu Kashmir was having special status. But in 2019 August, this Article 370 was abolished by the government. Now, Article 371, it provides special status to some of the northeast states like Assam is there, Nagaland is there, Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. So, because of their location, because of their culture, this special provision is given to these states. Like the protection of land will be there. No one from outside this outsiders from this state cannot purchase land there. Only the native people of those areas, those states can purchase the land there. So this is a special provision given. Then rights of the indigenous people, the native people of these areas, so they have protected their rights, their culture. And then employment is also given in the government services. Then now the next point, the consent of both the levels of the government is required. Now, the fundamental provisions cannot be changed unilaterally by one level. This we have earlier also discussed, that the one level of the government, that is the union level, cannot change the fundamental provisions by themselves. So the parliament also, they can't bring this change. Now, in order to make a change, how it can be made? First of all, the both houses, they have to pass this by two-third majority. So if any change has to be made, then in the fundamental provisions, then it has to be passed by the both the houses of the parliament by two-third majority. And then after that, the consent of the it should be the consent of the state governments. At least half of the number of the total states should also give consent to this change in the fundamental provisions. Then only the arrangement can be changed. Otherwise, unilaterally, the fundamental provisions cannot be changed. So both the houses will pass it by two-third majority, and then approval and consent will be given by the half of the states, or in the total number, whatever total number is there of the, then at least 14-15 states should also give consent to this arrangement. Then only the change can be there. Otherwise, unilaterally the change cannot be there. Then after that, the next, if we see judiciary, they also play a very important role in overseeing the implementation of the constitutional provisions and procedures. So they see that constitutional provisions properly is being followed or no, any lawmaking is done by the parliament, so that law should be in accordance with the constitutional provision. If it is not in accordance with the constitutional provision, then the judiciary can declare that law as null and void. Then if any dispute arises between the central government or the state government, or between the two state governments, or between the state government and the local government while discharging their duties, then judiciary is there to solve those kinds of disputes. So they act as a neutral person, they act as an umpire in order to solve these kind of disputes. So judiciary is there to interpret the meaning of the constitution. As a layman, we will not be able to understand what is written. So the judiciary is there to interpret the constitution and to interpret what are the powers of the different levels of the government. So in totality, judiciary oversees the implementation of the constitutional provisions and procedure, that everything, whatever functioning is done, it is done according to the provisions of the constitution. Then the separate sources of income, so we have discussed this. Clearly they are specified, different levels of government are there, so their sources are clearly specified in the constitution. Sources of income, because revenue is needed, then only the central government and the state government will be able to perform their day-to-day functioning, and they will be able to provide salaries if they have a revenue. So from where the revenue will be generated, so sources are clearly specified in the constitution. Like the state government, they will collect and they will levy the income tax, excise duty, corporation taxes. Then the state government, they will have control on land revenue, stamp duty and building tax. So all these features we have seen, that it makes India a federal country, that is the division of powers we have seen in the case of three lists. Then we have seen the three level of government we have. Then after that we have seen the unequal powers are given, and special status is given to few states only, to few administrative units only. in the case of holding together federation. Then after that we have seen unilaterally the provisions of the fundamental provisions of the constitution cannot be changed. Then after that we have seen the case of judiciary, and we have seen the sources of revenue are clearly specified. So all these points shows that India indeed is a federal country.